All right, we got a lot of people on the line here, and it is in fact 12:01. So why don't we get started here? First of all, thank you all for joining. Today, we're going to talk about the looming recession and what does that do to a marketing team? What does it do to a marketing plan? What does it do to your budget? And how do you react accordingly to make sure that you keep the ship running right with some choppy seas in front of you? So my name is Scott Tadaro. I'm the CMO and co-founder of Plana. So today, when I talk to you, hopefully I'll be able to give you a good understanding of what happens to your plan and how you need to prepare your teams in order to handle economic downturn. So it's always good to know who the heck is talking to you, whether I have any credibility to give you instruction. I think, all of these things I have here that I've done in marketing, I've been doing it for 30 years and a 7-time, head of marketing. I've had successful companies that have gone public and been acquired 4 times. And I have 2 business degrees with focuses in marketing. I used to teach marketing at the University of Massachusetts, both strategy and fundamentals. And I'm the co-author of the book, The Next CMO. If you guys have it, great. Thank you for downloading it or buying it or reading it. But I also have a very unique approach and some experience here that have actually lived through 3 recessions. So, and I've had this impact me and my budgets before, and it is definitely a scary time. And so, you need to work closely with your executive teams to make sure that everybody's in lockstep on the goals, or what will end up happening is that you'll have some thrash. So for those of you that don't believe that there's a recession coming, you may be right. I will say that times have changed. In the past, you could see the recession coming. The recession would come and it would last a little while. In the internet age, sometimes these looming recessions actually last like a couple months. We saw some of this phenomenon in 2020, where we probably should have gone into a recession. Now, we did pump $1.9 trillion into the US economy that trickled all over the place, all over the globe, and kind of buoyed economic growth. But, for the most part, you can't keep doing that. There's not a printing press to do it. So if in this case, with the inflation and also with, some market indicators showing that earnings and other things are soft across a number of different industries, this could impact all of us that are on this call. So what does it mean for a marketer to do marketing and to plan for a recession? For those of you that are 34 years old or less, you've never been through this. You've had 12 years of economic growth. For those of you that are older than 34, then you probably remember the Great Recession of 2008 with the financial crisis. What happened during that period of time was the first thing they did is everyone said, just cut budgets, cut it. You got to cut your budget. They lowered their targets and their expectations. They came up with a new set of goals because, frankly, when that happens, you probably are more in protect, cost-cutting, survival mode than you are in hyper-growth mode. They ask you to do more with less, right? So they'll cut, but they'll still expect to get more out of the people that are there, which obviously puts a lot of pressure. Now, in tough economic times, you'll find that your team will put up with it more because jumping is not really an option, right? So you do actually tend to get greater retention, but lower morale of your team. Hiring freezes are a definite. Layoffs are a probable. And so when those layoffs hit, how does that impact your business? We'll talk about all of this. And then lastly, you're going to have to replan. Right? If you think that you're going to do the same things that you've always done at the rate that you're going to do it, that just isn't going to happen. When the budget goes and the people go, or you can't hire the right people to fill the gaps of what you have in your team, you're going to have to figure out a new track to success that has more realistic expectations. All right. So maybe some of you have not lived through a recession before, but we did have fear that rolled around in 2020, and we had a massive impact on some of the channels that we could use to reach people. Obviously, trade shows were the first ones to go. And for people that invested a lot of money in event-based activities, that hurt, right? Where did that budget go? Some people cut it, some people allocated it toward digital. And then what ended up happening is we flooded digital. So, so what'd you do when it hit? Did you just panic and not do anything? Did you scale back immediately and start just pulling back some of your marketing spend? Did you just kind of throw the plan out the window and just do random acts of marketing every week with no real focus? Or did you replan? And I want you to be honest, not with me. This isn't a confessional. I'm not Priest Scott here that's going to judge you, but be honest with yourself. Did you really do anything to prepare for it? And if you didn't, if you just cut your budget, how did that impact your ability to market? This is really important. Okay. So, for the people that did do some replanning or thought at least about it, did it kind of look like this? You started with this great plan and budget at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden COVID hit and all of your events were canceled. So you moved all the campaign spend into digital, as I mentioned before, and frankly, everyone did. And all of a sudden we saw all of our Google AdWords, all of our LinkedIn ads, Facebook, all plummeting as far as the response rate, because there was just so much money getting poured into these digital channels. It drove our cost per lead up dramatically. So what happened next? After 3 months of this and realizing that this wasn't going to go away, the budget cuts came in, right? A lot of time at the end of Q2, when I say Q2, I know people have different quarters, but the quarter it is right now, people cut it at the end of the budget. So what happened is that impacted the ability to sell whatever your product was. And if you are on the B2C side and you were a movie cinema, you went down to zero, right? If you happen to be a little healthier, like you were in the tech or financial services industry, you still cut back on certain things because you really couldn't spend all the money you wanted because there weren't as many channels available to push that money through. And then lo and behold, as we started to hit the fall, economic rebirth, right? Things started to clear up. People started to spend money again. People came out of their house and saw the sun and it burnt their skin. And now you had to replan again because some companies started to pump more money into their budget again to rekindle everything. I mean, if you were an industry where you literally shut off your marketing budget because you were closed at the beginning, now you reopen and you had to double your efforts to jam that awareness and get people back to whatever your product was. So you see this seesaw battle that you have. Now, one of the things I will point out to you, all right, is this is 2020, it was a little more extreme, but I would argue that you have to do replanning almost every year, right? I mean, it could be a variety of other reasons why you need to replan, right? The CEO decides to change the direction of the company. That's going to cause a replan, right? You get in a whole bunch of funding, right? We just got in $50 million and we're going to give the marketing team $4 million. You need to replan, right? Your sales numbers don't come in where they need to be for 2 quarters. Now your budget's getting cut. We need to replan. So take these as a good set of activities to do, not only for when there's a recession, but keep this as good hygiene for your marketing planning as you move forward. This way it will give you a better opportunity to be successful as change hits, and it will prepare your team for this type of cycle. And just because they're a part of the process and they'll just be more receptive to the change. So let's talk about some replanning best practices for when this recession really starts to hit us. Now, I would argue that the recession and a budget cut and a replan are going to affect all elements of your marketing plan, but these are the top 10. And the budget at 10 is definitely not number 10. It's probably number 2 after your goals. But the first thing that you really need to look at is your goals and metrics. You got to be honest with yourself. Can you hit the metrics you had before with less budget or less people or both, right? And if you can't, what is that new set of metrics that you can deliver? And you have to work on this with the head of finance and the sales leader to make sure that all of this is in check. I don't think there's any real mystery here. I have actually seen companies before not reduce their sales numbers just their headcount and their marketing budget and hope for the same results. That is not a strategy that wins. Now, you may change some of your strategies, right? Maybe you have a more aggressive growth strategy, and maybe moving forward, you have a strategy to target your customer base. You want to get more retention. You want to get more upsells of your existing customers because it's lower hanging fruit to try to get more of that growth from your internal customer base, right? The loyal customers that still do have some budget available that can grow. So targeting or going after your competition. Maybe you have a product that's lower cost and your competition is out of the stratosphere with their price. This is an opportunity to go in and attack the competition and start to erode their customer base and build up your market share. So strategies come into play as you're starting to think about, what do I do next? Target audience. This is huge, right? In 2020, we at Plana, we sell to marketers. So, but in 2020, there were a lot of industries that literally were completely shut down. So we focused on a set of healthy industries like financial services and tech, where the money was still flowing, right? And that gave us the opportunity to form a different ICP than what we had prior to it, which also can change your messaging. We changed our messaging because we do planning and budgeting software. It became more about optimizing your budget, right? Because frankly, when you have less budget, you got to make sure you squeeze every nickel. It's not a situation where you can waste money. And we all know that 26% of all marketing budget is wasted, as reported by CMOs from the Rakuten survey. So if you're wasting a quarter of your money now, even a 5 to 10% improvement can help. And if you get your budget cut by 20%, if you can figure out how to optimize and get close to 90% of your money working efficiently, that really can help, right? Your campaigns are going to change, right? And then the mix of channels you're going to use is going to change. You may be using more free channels than you had before in the past. So more of database marketing or social, and less of highly expensive advertising. Partnering, you may have a situation where you can't get any more blood out of a stone. Partners can be a cheap way to leverage a distribution channel to get more pull through. I can guarantee you in an economic downturn, you're going to change your pricing and packaging. And if you're not going to change the baseline price, you will change your discounting schedule. Okay. It just happens, right? You have to, because people have less discretionary spend in order to buy your stuff. So you also need to change your approach. So if you're going through the replanning process, you may have an attack strategy where you've built out your whole marketing plan, you're going after it. That plan probably will not fly anymore. Okay, so you're probably going to need to dial it back to these two other options, which is time increments and read and react. The time increments in a recession, you should do 3 months as opposed to 6 months, because things can change really fast. And when they do, you don't want to be flat-footed with a plan that you're halfway through. So every 3 months, you should be going through a replanning exercise to see where the health of your business is and where the health of the economy is, and kind of look at those elements, right? The more seasoned the team, the more to the left you can move, right? So if you really want to get some agility going, you may want to go to read and react. So you're basically using an agile methodology. You're creating stuff weekly on what you're going to do, and you're looking at the indicators on a week-by-week basis with a very seasoned team. If you don't have a seasoned team, I would highly recommend you stay with time increments. That way you still create structure and make sure you're optimizing the time spent for your team, as opposed to having thrash while they try to figure out what to do. There are 4 steps for replanning. The first one is analyze the cause of change. Okay, I don't think there's any real mystery on this one, but what I will say is that replanning, like I said, comes in lots of forms, and it could be lots of different reasons why you have to replan. Sometimes they're external, sometimes they're internal, sometimes they're external that turn into internal problems, right? So the long and short of it is, you have to understand what is going on around you. I think this is a no-brainer. You need to establish new goals and metrics that go along with it. You're going to have to apply the new strategies, and then create your campaigns, allocate your budget, and execute. Okay, these are the 4 steps that you need to do. Okay, you may not need to change all the elements of your plan. You may not touch pricing. You may not touch distribution channels. You may not touch, product messaging, things along those lines. But you need to figure out which elements are changed, and these 4 things need to be done. So just some more detail on it. Analyzing the cause for change. Obviously in a recession, that usually is the primary reason. But you should be looking at what the real impact is on your buyer, right? And so maybe it's only a segment of your target audience. Maybe the other half of the segment is actually fairly healthy during this period of time. Maybe you have businesses that are not affected by a recession, or maybe they're businesses that actually get stronger during a recession, right? And you just got to look for which one of those is going to give you the best bet. Now, when you're establishing the new goals, really look at the percentage impact that they're expecting, either from the industry or where you see your pipeline numbers slowing down, or where you see, and don't buck that trend. If you start to see the pipeline numbers slowing down, okay, you need to start to plot that out as a trend line, and don't do it based on when you plan exactly, because it may continue to keep going down. So you need to be agile in it. Maybe set the goal a little more conservative, and if you overproduce, great. If you don't, then the problem is that now you'll put yourself in a position where now you're underachieving based on a replan, that now you have to go back and replan your goals, which creates a ripple effect through everything else you're doing as far as assigning your strategies, and then also allocating your campaigns to leverage those strategies in order to achieve your goals. Okay, so that's the detail on the 4 steps for it. Now let's talk a little bit more about goals, because this is really important. Okay, so there are 5 things that probably you're going to need to address at some point in time when you're looking at your goals and your replanning. Okay, sales is going to be number 1, because the main thing, the reason why we're in business is to sell things, right? We don't have any sales, we don't have any business. Actually, selling things is called doing business, right? So ultimately, the most important thing we can look at is our revenue targets. How are they going to be impacted? And then how does that impact, from a ripple effect, all of the funnel metrics that lead up to it? Now, there are a couple of other strategies you're going to look at. Like I mentioned, maybe you want to say, well, we're not going to, from a goal standpoint, we're not going to focus on new business. It's not going to be out there. We can get more from our existing customer base. We can try to increase our LTV. We can try to increase our retention rate, whatever it is that you're selling. Or you may, like I said, you may want to start to target some of your competition, because you already know that those buyers believe in the solution that you're offering because they're at your competition. It may just be an opportunity to decrease the price for them. And if you can undercut your competition, that kills your competition, and then gives you more market share, and also keeps the engine running so that you can hit your numbers, right? Perception. If you are a smaller company, I don't know, probably not too many of you guys have gone through a recession on this, but viability comes up, is huge, right? Are you going to stay in business? Well, sometimes you have to have a goal of creating the perception that you are bigger than you are, that you're more solid than you are, that you have more money than you do, you have more customers than you do. And that usually comes down to an active PR campaign or something along those lines that will drive it. But the critical element is figuring out, is there a perception gap that's going to be caused by the economy? Obviously buying from startups is risky. Okay, awareness. Sometimes you'll see companies that will turn around and do a strategy around really just driving a ton of awareness. They can't sell effectively during the recession, but what they want to do is still create that heat and warmth and brand identity, product identity, service identity. And as a result, they prepare for when the wave comes back, right? They're at the forefront because they were pushing their agenda and were doing a lot of activities that didn't cost a lot, but gave value to their prospects and to their customers. Cost cutting is going to be one of the goals you got to take a look at, right? It's how do you create efficiencies in how you use your budget. And, budget accuracy is going to become super important. Like when doing budgeting in good times, you come in anywhere between 2 to 3% your budget one way or the other. Nobody really says anything. CFO isn't on your back. When you're in tough economic times, they want to see this, you're not going over budget. Over budget is now a dirty word. Prior to that, when times are good, going under budget is the dirty word, right? Because you didn't do enough. So it actually flips. So you got to figure out what are those strategies. One of the ways that I've always done it is if the head of finance comes to me and says, you need to cut 20% of your budget, I go back to my team and I say, you need to get 20% discount on everything that you buy. And as a result of that, I will not approve anything until you get a 20% discount. And as a result of that, you make the 20% back. So there are ways to kind of skin a cat and strategies that you can use, to help achieve the goals you want. And here's the most important metric. Like we'll talk about sales. Sales are fantastic in high growth, good times. Profit and ROI are the numbers that the CFO wants to see during tough economic times. Okay, they don't want you blowing money. They don't want you running unprofitable marketing activities. So it's absolutely critical that you're measuring your marketing at an ROI level, at a profit margin level, at an LTV level. These are deeper into the sales funnel, and they require time and energy on your part to look at your budget, your spend, and match it up with the campaigns and be able to calculate it based on the metrics. And if you do, then this will get the CFO off your back. Okay, and I'll talk more about the CFO in a minute. You may want to rank your campaigns. I highly recommend it. Okay, so list out all the campaigns that you're running today, and then rank them on 4 key elements: impact, cost, time, and effort. Okay, just rank them, high, medium, low, and then give it a score. And then those scores, you rank your top performing campaigns, or what you assume are going to be your top performing campaigns, to your lowest. And then when you have the lowest, you just start lopping them off the bottom. So if you got 20% cut and you got 20 campaigns, right? You're just lopping those ones off the bottom, right? And that money now disappears and you make your cuts. Okay, some of you have probably built up slush funds, and a lot of times what will happen is that's where you'll cut it from. If you did, genius. If you didn't, because your CFO actually wants to see where the money's going and they don't like the word slush, then you're going to have to make trade-offs. Okay, but make sure that you're really keeping the ones that you think are going to give us the highest impact for the lowest cost. You may have fewer people, so the effort and time factor comes into play. All 3 of them are important. Okay. All right. So this is the toughest conversation we're going to have. And this is the hardest set of decisions that you need to make when the cuts come. It depends on what type of business you are. It depends on how you're selling, B2C or B2B. But you need to make a trade-off usually when the cuts come as to whether it's going to come out of your discretionary spend or it's going to be people. So if you're going to be thinking about where you want the cuts to come, and usually most companies will want to try to retain the people because it's hard to hire people. And if you've got a strong team, then you want to try to retain them as much as you can, because when the upswing happens, you have a fully up to speed team to get going, as opposed to if you lay a bunch of people off, you have to backfill and it's going to take longer for you to get going. So this is what you need to take into consideration before you start cutting either the headcount or discretionary spend. Do you have low performers on your team? If you do, it's an opportunity to get rid of some low performers, right? Take advantage of it. This will give you the opportunity to get stronger performers when the economy improves. If hiring people like product marketing people or ops people, it is super hard to do, right? If these people are not available, and some of them aren't very good, so you got to find people that are really good. So if you got a good one, don't let them go, right? If the headcount, if you decide to cut the headcount, now sometimes you can have low performers and you cut them, right? And what ends up happening next is that the morale on your team improves because people knew that they weren't doing their job. But sometimes the cuts are deep, and they cut to people that were popular or working hard. And as a result of it, it can create morale issues. And that will actually have a longer term impact because once the economy picks up, all those people are gone because they've lost faith in the company. They've lost faith in you as a leader. And as a result of it, you're going to have to restaff, which can take a lot of time, cost a lot of money, and impact your ability for growth when the economy picks back up. The other thing you need to look at is outsourcing. Like a lot of times what will happen is that you have a layoff, but what will happen is the CFO will say, well, I'm going to give you some more money for an outsourced resource to help you out. We like the outsourced resource because if it gets worse, like we can cut them. We don't have to worry about laying them off. We just send them an email and say you're done, right? And so that gives more flexibility, not only from a financial standpoint, but also gives more flexibility to you to make the cuts that you want. And then lastly, all of these kind of have to do with the people, but you need to take a look at the dollars too, right? If you're in a B2B business that's doing a lot of content marketing, well, then you need a lot of people to create the content and push the content out. But if you're a B2C company, then that money is really important. In fact, you can do more with fewer people. You can leverage agencies. There are lots of things you can do if you have the money. And the people may not be as important to you. So you got to look at the type of business you're in and what really drives your success. Now, we talked about the CFO, and I gotta tell you right here, toughen up. Your relationship with the CFO is never going to be worse than it is during a recession. The CFO is terrified of spend, and you have the largest discretionary spend in most cases of anybody at the company. So when the cuts come, they're coming to you. When you're not spending appropriately, they're going to come to you. They're going to watch your spend like a hawk, okay? And they're going to be all over you. And here's my advice to you, roll with it. They're actually doing the right thing for the business. They're making sure that you guys are spending the money properly. It will feel like a proctology exam. This is not going to be fun. But the good news is that if you communicate, and this is critical, if you communicate with your CFO and let them know how things are going, you work with them to help build out your plan in the first place, they're going to be more in lockstep with you. You're going to have less disagreements. You're going to have less pushback on the spend that you do have. The CFO still wants you to spend because they know that you need to spend money in order to make money. But if you can show ROI and communicate that with the CFO, they're going to be happy, right? They're going to feel validated to give you more money. So create the ROI, show it to them, work with them, communicate, and then they probably will take the handcuffs off you and you'll have a little more flexibility. And if you really push hard to get discounts, it shows that you're trying. And maybe there are people on your team that just aren't good at negotiating. If you are, make sure you do it, okay? Now, the plan, when you adjust the plan, you need to build out, if you don't already have a model set up for measuring ROI, because times are good, nobody asks you for it. If you don't have it set up, that's fine, okay? But you need to build it now, okay? So you need to be able to track your metrics and you need to be able to track your spend. You need to be able to track your campaign with the metrics, with the spend in order to calculate your ROI. This down here is the formula for calculating your ROI, okay? It's business value for marketing minus marketing investment divided by marketing investment. Take that with you, okay? This number that you create here will give the CFO what they need in order to feel comfortable to give you more money. And it will help you make better business decisions, especially in tough economic times. That return or that profit, the R in ROI, is a critical number for you to make you successful. All right, so let's talk quickly. We're at 12:30, so I got to really motor here. So in the future, what you need to do is do scenario planning so you don't get yourself into these messes. You can just, when the economic times hit, you can cut from your budget very quickly and easily and just move on, okay? So I know that this looks a little antiquated with SWOT. SWOT has been around. I'm sure everybody saw the SWOT in business school and everything else along those lines. But when you start looking at building out your scenario planning, which is a proactive way of replanning, when you build out your plan at the beginning of the year, do a SWOT. And what I recommend you do is really focus when you're doing your scenario planning on the threats and on the opportunities, because that will give you the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. And if you're preparing for those two, then you'll be in good shape. Now, if you see tough economic conditions looming, that is definitely a threat. If you see, other things like competition's growing, or you've got change in your management team, these are all threats that could impact your plan as it stands today. So do that SWOT. It'll give you greater insight. Always start with your base case marketing plan, build that first. Then start looking at the scenarios. You can may do best case, worst case. You may do if this product comes out, if this product doesn't come out, if this market shift happens, or that one happens, or if this competitor pops up or that happens. You want to lay out whatever the most impactful scenarios are. And if at least you start with best and worst case scenario, whatever those cases are that cause cuts, you're already ready to rock and roll and continue to move forward. And then figure out what are the thresholds that are going to trigger the scenarios, right? You can't just, we're off by 2%, call out the dogs, right? I mean, that's not really what you want to do. You want to make sure that you've set realistic thresholds that you believe that you can't impact with a little extra muscle or moving towards free channels and still get the same result. It's when you can't get the same result that you set as a result of your original goals. And the last thing I want to point out here is that this is the 7-step process for building and executing scenarios. I'm not going to go through all this stuff because I know we're up against the time here, but what I will say is this. Make sure that you're really thinking through this and really work with your team on all of these 7 steps, right? And it's kind of that same process you're going through with building your plan in the first place, but you're taking more critical eye to it. You're taking more of the situation analysis into it. You're building a tiered structure to be able to execute against it, and you're monitoring and trying to find those thresholds to see when they kick in, right? And then you got to make the hard decision to make the switch, and your team needs to be on board to do it. Because if they aren't on board to do it, that's when you're going to get frustration on your team. All right, so just some other tools that can help you replan. We have scenario planning and guide that we built out. It's hot off the presses. We did it a couple weeks ago. You can find it in our resource section. I think Kelsey will probably throw a link into the chat window for you guys so that you can get access to it. The second thing is that if you want to contact Plana, we have an agile planning platform that allows you to do scenario planning as well as replanning very quickly and easily. So if you decide to put all of this information, your plan, your budget, your campaigns, and all that stuff, direct metrics into Plana, you can quickly and easily make modifications in our product when the change hits. And with that, I will turn it over to any questions that anybody has on replanning, the recession, scenario planning, or anything else they want to talk about when it comes to marketing. So if you have the questions, just throw it into either the chat window or into the Q&A, and I will take them at this point in time. Okay, I think I got one here. Let's say, what is the best way to show ROI non-digital awareness plays, specifically events? Okay, so look, everything that you do has value. Okay, so when you're doing ROI, it's very easy to set the ROI numbers in the funnel metrics that are related to sales, right? And then everybody struggles with how do I determine what the ROI is on awareness? Well, everything you do in marketing has value, right? And a lead may be worth, say, $15 to you. It will create $15 worth of sales based on where it is in the pipeline. As you get further and further into the pipeline, obviously the metrics get higher and higher numbers because it's more likely to result in a transaction, whatever it is, whether B2B or B2C. But that awareness that you're doing still has value. So if it's $15 for, that you're pretty sure what a lead is worth, well, if you're doing awareness, you got a website visit, you got somebody that reads an article that's written on you, you have somebody that is, comments on Twitter, all of these things have value. So you can assign it. Maybe it's 2 cents, maybe it's 50 cents, right? But you need to assign that value to it. So you can measure awareness by putting in those metric numbers. And in fact, in Plana, we actually do this all for you. It will automatically calculate those numbers for you on awareness metrics too. So now you can start to show what the value of the awareness-based activities that you're doing are. Any other questions? Let's see. I didn't see. Kelsey, are you still on? Okay, I think maybe we lost Kelsey. So what I will do is this. We will send out in an email to all of you, because I have a question here for the recording. We'll send out the recording to you, and we will send out a link to the new replanning document. So you have both. So
sorry, Scott, I was on mute. I can read the question out.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think we already went through it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, wait, there's one other question I just see. What is the best way to show ROI for different, mainly awareness? Oh, this is the same one, or the same type of one. Okay, so we already went through that. All right, yeah, I think we covered everything here. So I think we're good. All right, so look, if anybody would like to get more information or just have more questions on it, I'm always happy to answer any questions you have. So you can just reach out to me at scott@plana.com. The book that I wrote, if you want it for free, it's on the top banner of plana.com. You can just click on it and get it. And I think Kelsey chucked the link in there for you. If you'd like to see a demo of Plana to help you get set up on replanning, you can go to contact@plana.com or reach out to me and I'll hook you up with somebody on our team. And if that's all we have for today, I don't know if I think maybe a question just popped in. No, I think that's it. So thanks everybody for your time today, and hopefully we'll look to see you on the next webinar that we have coming up in 2 weeks. In the meantime, if you want to join the next CMO community, 3,000 marketing leaders strong, feel free to go to thenextcmo.com and sign up for it. It's a free community for you guys all to share ideas and attend workshops and roundtables of other marketing leaders, and it's run by the community. So if there's anybody that wants to join that, it's thenextcmo.com. Thank you everybody for your time today, and happy marketing.